Hi, this is Steve with OS Nexus, and in this video we're going to go through setting up QuantaStor Storage Grids. I've got a grid set up here already so that you can see what the end result's going to look like, and then we're going to go delete the grid and then recreate it. So what you see on the screen here is a grid of 8 QuantaStor systems numbered QS90 to QS97, and we can see all the different systems, and with the grid formed, you get to manage all of these systems as if they're one unit. And what I mean by that is that when you go and create pools of storage, whether that they're scale out or that they're on individual systems, or any of the operations of managing this group of systems, they're all accessible through the web interface, through the APIs and the CLI all at the same time, and accessible from every node at the same time. So I'm logged into the first of these systems. I can go and log in to the last system here just as easily and manage the entirety of the grid. And where that's really useful is when you have hybrid clouds or QuantaStor distributed boxes distributed across different data centers. So if you have some in Houston and some in New York and some in London, it's really helpful to be able to just log into the local QuantaStor system so you don't have that latency to the web interface coming across the Atlantic, if you will. So creating a grid's really easy. You just go click here on the Create Grid button, and then you add additional systems to the grid. You can add them one at a time, or you can add them in groups. We'll go and delete this grid, and then we'll recreate a grid of with these systems back in. So one other bit on the grid is that there is a master node of the grid. So you can indicate which one you want all the grid communication to be coordinated through. So it's more like a coordinator node, and you can set it to any of the systems. So you can just right click and say on here and change it to whichever node. But you can also make it so that it automatically elects a new node, and we'll dive into that next after we recreate a new grid. You go to the high availability VIF management, and we'll create a site cluster, and then we'll go and add a grid master interface, which is a virtual interface that can float between the different nodes of a grid, and that automatically elects that node as the coordinator. So let's get started. So we've already got a grid of a number of systems set up here, and we're going to delete this just to free up the boxes so that we can create a new grid. So what you're going to see is, now that I've deleted the grid, this box that we're logged into, 97, is now basically a system of one. It doesn't have a grid, and if I go back to the other box that we're logged in over here, you can see it's also a grid of one. So now we can go and start to grid things up again, and I'll start on box 90. You can pick any box to form the grid on, and we'll call this QuantaStor Grid 1 and click OK. And so now this is a grid of one, and now we can start to add additional systems to the grid. The current coordinator, you'll see this little little icon with a little triangle on it indicating that it's the grid coordinator. So that's a good easy way to see that. Now we're just going to go and add more systems. You can add them one at a time. We'll do that first. So the next box is at 10.0.8.91, and the password on these boxes is just password. So I can just click OK, and it will put the default password in. Highly recommend you put good passwords in for these systems. One thing to note is that the admin account for these boxes gets merged with the primary account being on whichever the one is that's the coordinator. So if you have different admin passwords on different boxes, know that those user accounts get merged together, because in the grid you only have one user account for each, that spans the whole grid with a given name. So if you had a user, Steve, that was on box 90 and 91, and then you merged, added 91 to the grid, that account for Steve is whatever password was set on 91 is no longer valid. It's the one that's on 90 in this case. So the coordinator nodes will take preference over the secondary nodes. Let's go add one more system here. So click Add System, 10.0.8.92. We have 90 and 91. We'll add one more. And you just put the password in again. This is just using the default password on these systems because I haven't set that up yet. And there we go. There's the third system added to the grid. You can also add systems to the grid in groups. So instead of having to do this one by one, we can add the remaining nodes by putting in 10.0.8.93 to 97, which are all the remaining boxes that we want to go add. And now this is going to go batch add all of those systems to the grid. So we can see here 91, 92, 93, all the way up, and it's already synchronized. You'll see when you first add systems to a grid, that little green up arrow indicating it's initializing and synchronizing that node with the grid. After that, you'll see that arrow go away, and now everything is all set up. On each system, you can manage the networking just by right-clicking on these and modifying ports and creating VLANs and all that. We'll be posting another video to go into the networking side. So now let's go over here and set up a virtual interface for the grid, so that if the node that's the current coordinator, the current master node, is turned off, that a new node will be automatically elected to coordinate the grid communication. So to do that, we need to set up a heartbeat across the group of nodes that we want to be eligible to become the grid coordinator, the grid master. So we can make that all the nodes or just some of the nodes. This is real easy to set up. You say create site cluster, and we're just going to make it across all the nodes. So I'm just going to select them all, and I'm just going to say this is like site 1, and I'm going to click OK. So this is going through and creating a heartbeat ring that goes across those boxes. And then once this is done initializing and it shows all the boxes as has a healthy state on the cluster's quorum has been formed, then we'll be able to go to this next step here to go and add that virtual interface to the grid. And we can pick any IP address that we want for this. We could call it why don't we make it 99, since the other ones are in the 90s, and we can attach it to whichever interface we want. And once these things are done, going to the healthy state, then we'll be all set to go. It's almost there. You can see most of them have updated their state, and there's one left here with QS90. You can also, down here at the bottom, you can see the progress of the tasks. This task is all completed, and it's just waiting for the cluster state to finish updating. Sometimes you get a lot of tasks in the list. Here we got 45. We can hit clear tasks and dismiss alerts to go and clear this stuff out so we can have it a little easier to follow. So now we're ready to create that virtual interface. So I'm going to click OK. And what we're going to see is over here on the network configuration side, we're going to see that IP address appear on one of the nodes. Here we set it up initially to be on QS90, so there it is, and you see it says grid IP with 8.99. If that IP, if we turn off QS90, that IP will just automatically move to another box, and then we'll see this little icon shift to whichever box it moves to. And you can still explicitly go and set a different node as the grid master, and it will just move that virtual interface over to the other box. So that's all there is to setting up a storage grid with QuantaStor. You can also merge grids together and split them in half. The commands to go split grids into two pieces or merge two grids together, those are available at the command line, QuantaStor command line utility. The other big benefit of forming a grid is that when you have multiple storage clusters and pools, it's very easy to set up replication between them because you can see all of the storage in one place, and the replication schedule system is set up so that you can just choose what you want to replicate from one pool on any system in the grid to any other system in the grid. So the grid technology comes into play in cluster formation and remote replication, in the security, enforcing security policies across the entirety of the grid. So it plays a key role in really simplifying the management and managing data workflows, especially for larger environments that have a lot of different systems. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this video. If you have any questions, email us at info@osnexus.com. Thanks for watching.